All right. Gotta admit, when I first saw this stack of books for our deep dive, uh, I kind of gulped.
Yeah, it's a bit intimidating, right?
It is Trading in the Zone, The Disciplined Trader, both by Mark Douglas. Then we've got, let me see, Technical Analysis of the Financial Markets. That's John J. Murphy, of course.
Classic.
Oh, and Market Wizards, Jack Schwager. And to round it all out, How to Make Money in Stocks by William O'Neill. I mean, that's a lot of tea to unpack.
It is, but that's what we're here for, right? To
Yeah,
help break it down for everyone.
exactly. And there's honestly something here for, well, everyone, I think, whether you're just starting out or, you've been trading for a while.
You hit the nail on the head there. And what I think is really cool is that this isn't about just like memorizing a bunch of trading jargon. It's about those deeper principles that, well, that really make a difference in the markets.
Okay, so let's dive into that. We've got two books here by Mark Douglas, and both of them, like, really zero in on the psychology of trading. That can't be a coincidence, can it?
Not at all.
So, so why IS psychology so important in trading? I mean, shouldn't we be like, I don't know, more focused on the charts, the numbers, all the technical stuff?
Of course, the technical stuff matters,
Yeah.
but let's be honest. Trading is emotional, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You're dealing with actual money. You can win, you can lose. And those possibilities, well, they do things to your head.
Yeah.
Douglas, in Trading in the Zone, argues that consistently successful traders, the ones who really make it, they aren't just good at reading the charts. They've mastered something else. They can think clearly, even when the pressure's on.
So it's about removing those emotions that can cloud our judgment.
Exactly. Fear and greed. Those are the big ones.
But isn't there a risk of being, I don't know, too detached? Like, what if you overthink everything and miss out on opportunities?
That's a great question. And, it's not about becoming some emotionless robot.
Right, right.
It's about knowing when your emotions are driving the bus, so to speak, and having ways to deal with that. Douglas talks about creating a winning attitude.
Okay, I've heard that phrase, but what does that actually mean?
It's not about some, like, blind optimism or anything. It's more about having a consistent approach. A set of rules, that you stick to no matter what, whether you're feeling on top of the world or completely freaking out.
So, like, having a risk management plan in place beforehand, that way you're not making, like, a rash decision based on fear when a trade's going against you.
Exactly. It's like having a pre-flight checklist. Before every trade, you go through the same steps, no matter how you're feeling at that moment. And this ties in really well with the disciplined trader. In that book, Douglas gets into the nitty-gritty of managing your emotions and like really developing that consistent approach.
The disciplined trader sounds, well, a little dry if I'm being honest. Is all that psychology stuff really necessary? I mean, can we just like skip to the part where we learn to pick winning stocks?
I get it. But even if you found some magic formula for picking stocks, right? If you're constantly second-guessing yourself or letting fear make you sell too early or buying on impulse, well, that magic formula is not going to do you much good.
Okay, I see your point.
Think of it this way. You can have the fastest car in the world, but if the driver's panicking, hitting the brakes at every turn, they're not going to win the race.
You're totally right. Our minds can be our worst enemies in trading. So we've got psychology covered, but what about, the actual technical side of things? That's where technical analysis of the financial markets comes in, right?
Yep. John J. Murphy. It's like the Bible of technical analysis. It covers just about everything.
Yeah, and it's a big book.
It is, but even just understanding a few key things from it can really give you an edge.
Okay, but be honest, who actually has time to read the whole thing? Could you give me an example of like one thing from Murphy's book that would be useful to, even someone who's just starting out?
Let's see, well, moving averages. They're pretty simple, but they can be super helpful in identifying trends. Murphy explains how to use them effectively.
So we don't need to be experts in like every single chart pattern and all that. Just understanding a few tools can make a difference.
Absolutely. You don't have to be a master chef to cook a decent meal.
That's a good point.
You start with the basics, and then you go from there.
Okay, this is all making me feel a bit less overwhelmed. So we've talked about the psychology side with Douglas and a bit about technical analysis with Murphy. But how do we actually bridge the gap between theory and, actually succeeding in the markets? Is that where Market Wizards comes in?
Exactly. Market Wizards is full of interviews with some of the most successful traders out there.
Yeah.
And it's not just stocks, it's different markets, different strategies, the whole deal. It gives you a glimpse into, well, how they think.
Oh, I like that. It's like getting a peek behind the curtain, right?
Yeah. You get to see what works for people who, well, they've actually done it. They've achieved success.
But there are so many different approaches featured in the book. How do we even begin to apply those lessons to our own trading?
It's a good question. But one thing that comes up again and again is risk management. Doesn't matter what strategy they use, they all focus on protecting their capital.
So Market Wizards isn't about finding the one right way to trade. It's about understanding the principles that lead to success.
Precisely. One of the things I found most interesting is this idea that you can actually be wrong quite a bit in trading.
Right.
As long as you manage your risk well, you can still come out ahead. In fact, there's this one trader in the book, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he talks about, hold on, let me find it. Here we go. He basically says that every trade is a bet, and you need to decide how much you're willing to lose before you even place that bet.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Market Wizards is definitely going on my reading list. But before we get too carried away with becoming, market wizards ourselves, let's talk about a specific strategy. William O'Neill's How to Make Money in Stocks and the Can Slim method. I've heard some people say that it's a bit too, I don't know, rigid.
Yeah, O'Neill definitely lays out a specific set of criteria.
Yeah.
But, for newer traders, that structure can be a good thing. It gives them a framework to use, helps them avoid making emotional decisions.
So it's like training wheels.
Exactly.
But what makes Can Slim different from other stock picking strategies?
One thing that stands out is the emphasis on what he calls N, new highs. O'Neill says that stocks hitting those new highs, that's often a sign of momentum. And focusing on those stocks, well, it can lead to big returns.
So it's not just about finding undervalued companies, it's about finding companies that are already showing strength.
Yeah.
Okay, we've covered so much already. The psychology of trading with Douglas, the technical side with Murphy, Market Wizards, and now Can Slim. My brain's a little full.
Mine too. But we're not done yet. We still have 3 honorable mentions to get to.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to, add even more to our understanding of trading.
All right, bring them on. Let's see what other gems we can uncover. So we've got those big 4 books, but we also mentioned some honorable mentions, right?
We did. 3 more books that, well, I think they add a lot to the conversation.
Okay, so we've got Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, that's Edwin Lefebvre, and then The Art of Currency Trading by Brent Donnelly. Oh, and A Beginner's Guide to the Stock Market by Matthew R. Cratter. Quite a range there.
There is. It's like each one offers a different lens to view the markets through.
Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. That one's considered a classic.
It is. And for good reason. It's not your typical, how-to book,
Tell us.
It's actually, it's like a fictionalized biography of this guy, Jesse Livermore, legendary trader from way back early 1900s. But even though it's a story, it's got so much in it about psychology and strategy, stuff that's still relevant today, surprisingly.
Really? I mean, the markets have changed so much since then.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
But human nature, that hasn't changed so much, has it?
I guess not.
Livermore's story, it really highlights the timeless stuff. Managing emotions, handling risk, riding those market waves.
So what's a key takeaway? Something practical we can learn from this guy who was trading, over 100 years ago?
Well, one thing that stands out is patience. He wasn't afraid to wait for the right opportunity, even if that meant, sitting on his hands for a while.
Interesting, because you always hear about traders being, impulsive, making quick decisions, always buying and selling.
Right. But Livermore, he was different. He knew when to wait.
Okay, Reminiscences teaches us about patience. What about The Art of Currency Trading? Does that one have a similar blend of, the mental game and strategy?
It does. Brent Donnelly, the author, he does a great job of bringing those two things together. He's got tons of experience in Forex.
Forex, so that's currencies, right?
Yeah, foreign exchange. And one thing that really stood out to me was his emphasis on understanding the context of the market. He says those technical patterns, the charts and all that, they can be misleading if you don't look at the bigger picture.
What do you mean by bigger picture?
Well, like the economic and geopolitical stuff that's happening in the world. That all affects the markets.
So it's not enough to just stare at charts.
Nope. Got to know what's driving those price movements.
Like a detective. Looking for clues everywhere.
Exactly.
All right, last but not least, we've got A Beginner's Guide to the Stock Market. Does that one have anything, unique to offer? I mean, beyond just the basics?
It does. What I like about Cratter's book is that even though it's for beginners, it doesn't shy away from some of the tougher stuff.
Like what?
Well, he talks about things like diversification, asset allocation, making sure you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Right, spreading the risk.
Exactly. And he even touches on behavioral finance, which is, it's all about how our psychology affects our investment decisions.
Huh. So even for beginners, it's not just about learning, like, how to buy and sell.
Nope. It's about understanding yourself as an investor, too.
I'm noticing a theme here. All these books, even the one for beginners, they all say psychology is important, self-awareness.
It's like the common denominator, isn't it?
It is. Regardless of what you're trading or how you're trading it, you got to know yourself.
Yeah.
So those two books by Mark Douglas, the psychology ones, they seem pretty essential.
I'd agree with that. They give you the tools to handle the ups and downs of the market, without letting your emotions get the best of you.
Okay, they're on my list. So from your experience, what's the biggest mistake new traders make? Is it the psychology stuff, or is it more like not knowing enough about, the technical analysis?
I think it's often a bit of both. New traders, they can get really caught up in the excitement of it all.
Yeah, the markets are pretty exciting.
They are. But that can lead to jumping into trades without a plan.
Without thinking it through.
Exactly. And that's a recipe for disaster.
So what's the key?
Having a plan, a strategy, and the discipline to stick to it, even when things get crazy.
When you start feeling that FOMO?
Oh, yeah, the fear of missing out. That's a big one. See, stock going up, and you just got to get in on the action.
I've been there.
But without a plan, you're just gambling, not trading.
Okay, so planning, strategy, discipline, those are the foundations.
They are, and that's why I think this deep dive is so important. We're not just talking about picking stocks. We're talking about the principles of success.
I gotta admit, when we started, I was kind of overwhelmed by all these books. But now I'm actually feeling more confident. It's like I'm starting to understand what it really takes to make it in the markets.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, this is just the beginning. The markets are always changing, so we got to keep learning and adapting too.
Always learning. All right, well, let's move on to our final part. I'm excited to see how we can bring all of this together, and actually apply it to our own trading. Okay, so we've gone through a lot. The psychology of trading, all that technical analysis stuff we've learned from the market wizards, and even got into a specific strategy with that can slim method. Phew. But I think what's really sticking with me is it's not just about finding those magic indicators or the perfect strategy. It's more about, well, understanding ourselves as traders, our strengths, weaknesses, how our emotions can mess things up.
You got it. All these books, it's like they're saying, hey, before you even look at a chart or pick a stock, you got to look inward first.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's not something I've ever really thought about much before. I've always been more focused on, the technical side,
Yeah.
learning the patterns and back testing and all that. But now I'm realizing that mastering the technical stuff, well, that's just part of the equation.
Exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
imagine a surgeon with shaky hands.
Yeah.
They might know everything there is to know about surgery, but if they can't control their hands, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's the same with trading. If you can't control your emotions, all that technical knowledge, it won't save you from making those impulsive decisions.
Okay, that's a good analogy. So let's say I'm ready to do that, to look inward. Where do I even begin? Is there like a specific exercise or something that can help me understand my biases?
One thing that's super helpful is keeping a trading journal.
In general, okay.
And it's not just about like writing down your wins and losses. It's about really thinking about why you made each decision. What were you feeling? Were you just like chasing that fear of missing out?
Yeah.
Or maybe you were too confident after a win. Or maybe you were holding on to a loser because you just couldn't admit you were wrong.
So it's like bringing awareness to the process,
Yeah.
recognizing those emotional triggers that can lead us astray. But what happens once we've like identified those biases? How do we actually change our behavior?
Well, that's where discipline comes in. It's about setting rules for yourself and actually sticking to them, even when it's tough.
Easier said than done, right?
It is. But for example, you might decide that you're never going to enter a trade without a stop-loss order. Or maybe you decide you'll never risk more than, say, 2% of your capital on any one trade.
So it's like creating a set of rules to protect ourselves from our own bad decisions.
Exactly. And those rules, they got to be based on logic and strategy, not emotion. That's why having a trading plan is so important. It's not just about like picking stocks. It's about knowing your risk tolerance, your goals, and having those specific criteria you use to make decisions.
It's amazing how all these books, even though they're all different, they all come back to this idea of discipline and self-awareness.
It's the foundation. No matter what your style is, what market you're trading.
It all starts there.
Yep.
I have to say, when we started this whole deep dive, I was a little intimidated, all these books. But now I'm actually feeling, well, kind of excited about my trading journey. Like, it's all starting to click a bit more.
That's great to hear. And remember, this is just the start. There's always more to learn. The markets change. We got to change with them.
Always learning. Well said. So, to everyone listening out there, I encourage you dive into these books, embrace the challenge, keep learning. And most importantly, remember, your biggest asset in trading, it's not some fancy indicator or strategy, it's your own mind.
Couldn't agree more. Self-awareness, discipline, a good plan. Those are the keys to success.
This deep dive has been incredible. Thank you so much for everything, for sharing all your insights, for taking us through these books. I honestly feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on trading.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, trading's a journey, not a destination, right? Enjoy the ride and never stop learning.
Until next time, happy trading, everyone.